So the spring 2024 marathon season in the UK is nearly at an end. Perhaps you had a really good race and ran a PB or an age group best. Perhaps you had a more solid outing and want to improve for next time. Or perhaps like me, you were very disappointed and are looking to bounce back quickly and get a good marathon under your belt. But however you performed, it's that time of year where many of us are looking forward to planning our autumn marathon and our spring marathon for the following year.
So in this video we're going to take you through 5 things that we consider when we enter a marathon.
And we hope that you find them useful too. So the first factor you're probably going to look at when deciding which marathon is for you is the cost of entry. So entering a marathon is far from a cheap business these days on the most part. And with the cost of living crisis still affecting people, it's important to try and get full value for your pound. So I've done a bit of digging and I'll put up the prices now of some of the major and middle ranking UK marathons, and you can see generally you'll be paying between about 60 and 70 pounds for an entry into these. But the obvious one that stands out there is the Newport Marathon, where at the time of recording this video you can get yourself an entry into a marathon where there were 7,000 finishers last year and has an excellent and growing reputation for just £39, which to me looks like a considerable bargain. And if you dig a bit further, you can find the North Dorset Village Marathon, an excellent race I've done twice in the past and Dawn has done once. Entry this year for UKA members was just £25 for an accredited, measured marathon course. Fantastic value. So if you're looking for an inexpensive marathon, get yourself down to North Dorset in early May. So if you want to look a bit closer what you get for that entry fee, obviously you want an accurately measured course that is well organised on the day. But if you dive a bit deeper, some of you may be more interested in the memorabilia, the bling, the t-shirts, etc. you get at the end of it. Some of you might be more interested in the race experience overall, which I'll come on to later. But when you're looking at what that cost entails, that's your ballpark figure, 60 to 70 pounds, but there are cheaper ones out there if that really motivates you and would swing your decision towards which marathon to choose. Have any of you got any marathons entered for this coming autumn, or perhaps even looking ahead spring of 2025? If you have, let us know in the comments below.
So before we carry on, we'd really like you to give this video a like, and if you haven't subscribed, we'd love you to do so. So the second thing that you need to think about when you're entering a marathon is the size of the field.
So there are 2 UK marathons where the field runs into tens of thousands. That's London and Manchester.
And there are others that run into the several thousands. Chester, Yorkshire, Newport, Brighton.
And there are others where entrants can be numbered in the hundreds, such as North Dorset, Abingdon, several hundred, and Halstead.
Yes, so your choice of marathon will depend on whether you like running in larger crowds or whether you prefer a more dispersed field.
And a smaller marathon, for example, the start area is less congested. It's easier to access toilets. It's easier to do any warm-up and drills you might want to do. Whereas in the bigger marathons, you might have long toilet queues. I think also at Chester, we found there was very little hanging around at the start. In fact, we could park our car about 200 yards from the start line.
And we were able to keep warm right up to the last minute we needed to get there.
Yeah, Yorkshire Marathon was actually a covered area to stay in until near the start as well. So that worked quite well.
So London has massive crowd support. Thousands and thousands of spectators lining the route.
It creates sort of a wall of sound, doesn't it?
It does, and many people absolutely love this. It actually lifts them. I've had people say it lifts them and carries them along the course.
Whereas Manchester, I found quite a nice mix. There were pockets of very loud support, particularly through Deansgate in the city centre.
Yeah.
But then there were also times where there was people on the route, but not thick crowds making noise. So you could sort of switch off a bit from it. From what I've seen of the Brighton Marathon, it was pretty much all in Brighton, so support all around. Whereas I know Chester and Abingdon, there's quite a lot of countryside there. So if that's what you prefer, peaceful, rural, then perhaps gravitate towards those marathons. So the second factor to take into account when choosing your autumn and spring marathons in the UK is the size of the field. So the third factor I think about when planning which marathon to enter are the logistics of getting there, accommodation and getting to the race start. So two significant marathons near us where I can get to on the day, and that's Manchester in that direction and Yorkshire in that direction. So that means we don't have to go to the expense and the hassle of booking overnight accommodation. And if you're a light sleeper and don't sleep well away from home, that might well be a consideration to take into account when choosing your marathon.
And if you were driving a long way to a marathon, you wouldn't really want to do it the day before.
That's right, so you'd have to go down perhaps on the Friday before, which might impact on your work and having to take time off. It also means then you've got the extra night's accommodation to take into account. And then once you're in the town or city where the marathon is happening, you've got to consider getting to the race start. So some marathons, you could actually park right near the start. Chester was one, Abingdon was about half a mile walk, wasn't it, from the race start. Others like North Dorset, you are just a couple hundred yards from the start as well. So Manchester, you have to use the trams to get there if you're travelling on the day. Yorkshire operate a park and ride scheme. So again, the distance you have to travel on the day to the race start might impact on which marathon you choose.
When you decide which marathon you want to do, you may see logistics as a consideration.
So what is the number one consideration for you when choosing which marathon to enter? Let us know in the comments below. So the fourth consideration many people take into account when choosing which marathon to enter is how fast they can expect to run on that particular course. So in the UK we're quite lucky. I know of many courses where people have set PBs. They include London, obviously, Manchester, Abingdon for myself, Chester, Newport in Wales, Yorkshire, Edinburgh. All these courses I know people set PBs on. Even Boston, Lincolnshire, if you get the right day. I'll come on to that in a minute. So apart from reputation and word of mouth, how can you work out what might be the fastest course if you're looking to run a PB or age group best, or just the fast time generally? So you need to look at the course gradient. Are there any hills or undulations? If so, where are they? Do you get them out of the way early, or do they come as a nasty sting near the end? Is it a course on a breezy day? There'll still be quite a bit of shelter because it's in a built-up area like London or Manchester. Or is it one that's open to the elements? We know a few people did the Boston UK Marathon this year. 22-mile-an-hour winds, horrible rain. Not a nice experience, I would imagine. But I've known people in previous years and run very fast times in benign conditions on the open, flat Lincolnshire roads. As I've already mentioned, is it one where it's a hassle to get to on race morning and where you might be standing around exposed at the start for ages? Or is it one where you can arrive at the start line fresh and ready to go? And if you're a runner who thrives off the encouragement of a crowd, as we've said, get yourself to one where there are crowds. So chasing a PB, a London Good for Age qualifier, a Boston qualifier, or fast time for any other reason is your thing, take those points into consideration when choosing your marathon.
So the fifth and final factor that you may take into account when choosing your marathon is the ease at which your family and friends can move around the course to spectate and give you support.
So London, obviously you've got the underground network, which in theory is brilliant, but we know from recent reports can get really busy on race day, and it can be difficult to get to the point where you thought you were going to be handing your loved one maybe a gel or just some moral support.
Manchester had a tram system and that seemed to work quite well. We saw people who popped up on lots of different parts of the course, said it was busy but not a problem.
When I was spectating last year, you could see the start and then the 7-mile point by walking about a quarter of a mile, and I could then have got to the 23-mile point. So even not using the tram system, you got 3 spectator points right there. Abingdon I found on following dawn last year, because there's like 2 big loops, I was able to see it twice on those loops, and at a far point at 19 miles can knew where to drive. So Abingdon's quite good for having spectators support you and follow you en route. Chester being a 1-loop course, I reckon you'd have to follow it on a bike. You could probably drive bits of it, but I'm not a fan of driving a car around busy marathon courses, even if you're technically able to.
And Yorkshire Marathon, they provided a shuttle bus to take people out to spectate on different parts of the course.
So there's just a few examples. Have you had family or friends spectate at the UK Marathon? If so, how did it go? Any tips you'd like to pass on to our viewers? Let us know in the comments below. So we hope you've enjoyed our little trail through what you might want to consider when entering a marathon. If you have, please give this video a like and consider subscribing as we progress through to our autumn and spring marathons this coming year and next.
So, until next time guys, keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.